It appears Democratic presidential frontrunner Joe Biden is not taking his lead for granted. He is on somewhat of a take responsibility tour today. He spoke in Sumter, South Carolina just a short time ago and addressed race issues raised by his opponents. He expressed regret for comments he made about working with segregationist senators. And at the same time, he pointedly called out his rivals, saying they want to ignore all the work he did as vice president. Take a listen.
Was I wrong a few weeks ago to somehow give the impression to people that I was praising those men who I successfully opposed time and again? Well, yes, I was. I regret it. And I'm sorry for any of the pain or misconception they may have caused anybody. America in 2019 is a very, very different place than the 1970s. And that's a good thing. I've witnessed an incredible amount of change in this nation. And I've worked to make that change happen. And yes, I've changed also. I'm not the same person who entered the Senate at age 29. I don't pretend to have gotten everything right. I don't pretend that none of my positions have changed. I've grown, and I think it's good to be able to grow, to progress. If you look at the issues I've been attacked on, nearly every one of them somehow has something to do with before 2008. As if my opponents want to believe I served from 1972 to 2008 and then took a hiatus the next 8 years. They don't want to talk much about my time as Vice President of the United States.
Biden also talked about his decision to support the controversial 1994 crime bill. He said he'd take responsibility for what the bill got right and what it got wrong. I want to get reaction now from one of Biden's 2020 rivals, best-selling author and activist Marianne Williamson. Marianne, thanks for being here. Biden says his opponents don't want to talk about all the things he did as vice president. What do you say to that?
I don't want to talk about Joe Biden. I want to talk about the United States of America. I don't want to talk about anybody's past. I want to talk about the future of our country, where we need to be as people, where our public policy needs to be. So the politics of trying to bring down one candidate, all of that stuff, it's not of great interest to me.
You just qualified for the second Democratic debate in Detroit later this month. Congratulations. Marianne, you got a lot of buzz after the first debate. In fact, you were the most searched candidate on Google, but so far that hasn't necessarily translated into support in the polls. Why do you think that is?
Well, the fact that it hasn't translated into support in the polls that you're looking at doesn't mean that it's not translating into support in every meeting that I'm having, every house party, every place I go in Iowa, every place I go in New Hampshire, where I see crowds, where I'm getting standing ovations. I think it's translating into a lot of support. You know, it's what's happening on the ground in these states. That's where it matters, where the voters are, not necessarily what's happening yet in polls and all of that kind of stuff. Any candidate knows that. We know where it really matters, and that's inside people, whether or not you feel your words are landing. And whether or not your words landed in a particular debate, you know, that's one moment, and it's a long conversation that you're having with the voters, and I feel confident about the conversation that I'm having with the voters in the primary states.
Not all the voters know who you are, and the New York Times just wrote a piece that looks inside. It talks about how a book from 1976 had a big impact on you and your career path and now your candidacy. This book is called A Course in Miracles, and the Times describes that text as, quote, a curious New York scripture that arose during the heady metaphysical counterculture of the 1960s that is taken by its readers as a genuine gospel produced by a Manhattan doctor who believed she was channeling new revelations from Jesus Christ himself. How has this book influenced your life and your vision for America?
Well, first of all, I think that's a deep misrepresentation of this book. This book is not a religion. There's no doctrine. There's no dogma. It's a book that talks about universal spiritual themes of inner peace and forgiveness and love. And those universal spiritual themes are in all the great religious and spiritual systems of the world. And as a woman, understanding more deeply what love means in my life, how to forgive, how to be more giving, more about giving than taking, how to be of service, how to try to live my life as a woman in greater relationship, deeper relationship with the people around me, what it means to live in justice and in mercy and in love, whether I'm finding it from my own religious tradition of Judaism, whether I'm finding it from the Course in Miracles, whether I'm finding it from Hinduism, whether I'm finding it reading in Buddhism. I studied comparative religion and philosophy when I was in college. I started taking religion and spirituality classes when I was in high school. And we live in a country where that kind of religious and spiritual seeking is common. This is America. We're a very religious nation. So this is not weird. And no matter how many times people want to act like it's weird that somebody believes in God, weird that somebody tries to live a more forgiving or loving life, I think our public policy could use a little dose of love, a dose of moral and ethical consideration. Nobody should be apologizing for the fact we're trying to figure out and to live in more practical ways, a more loving existence.
I can appreciate where you're coming from. I was just asking the question about, how that particular book influenced you and how it may influence your vision for the country. That's where I was coming from in my questioning there. I want to ask you about another article that was prominent this week that I know you took issue with. Of course, I'm talking about the Annie Leibovitz Vogue photo shoot and the accompanying article that featured all the Democratic women running for president except for you. And here's the version you put out with yourself strategically inserted into the portrait above their heads. Do you feel like you're not being taken seriously or treated as a legitimate candidate? How did this situation make you feel?
Well, first of all, I did not put out that meme. I saw it on the internet because there's so many memes right now with everything regarding my candidacy, regarding my debate performance, regarding the Leibovitz. And so when I was doing one of those things on your Instagram where you post several things, I posted quite a few memes. I just saw that one on the internet. I have not made any memes about that. So I saw a meme, the one you're talking about, I saw a meme with my face. Listen, I think all of the women who are running for president are lovely. I have met them all. I have great respect for them all. And Vogue magazine did what Vogue magazine did. I certainly don't have an issue with any of the women. I think it is significant when something like a Vogue magazine so clearly implies that only they are qualified. That's definitely a dismissal. But this was not some big thing in my life. And like I said, I'm not the one who made the meme.
Has Vogue called you to do a follow-up piece? No. A lot of people know you as Oprah's spiritual advisor. Who are your closest advisors?
Well, first of all, I don't think that I'm Oprah's spiritual advisor any more than I could say that she's been my spiritual advisor, like she's been a spiritual advisor in many ways to an entire generation of Americans. I think the fact that she reads someone's book and has been so generous in her support of my books doesn't mean that she sees me as an advisor. My own advisors, I think my first and foremost would be my own parents who are no longer with us. I think my daughter, my 29-year-old daughter, is certainly someone who I look to for advice. It's a very interesting thing, the way that happens as your children become adults themselves. I have close friends. I have close colleagues. You know at a certain point in your life who you want to listen to, who, when they text with feedback, I want to hear what they have to say. I have those people in my life just like everybody does.
You know you've made it to the national stage when you have SNL's Kate McKinnon impersonating you. And here's one of her takes on a moment from the debate.
My first call is to Prime Minister of New Zealand, who said that her goal is to make New Zealand the place where it's the best place in the world for a child to grow up. And I will tell her girlfriend, you were so on.
And I said to the president of New Zealand, I said, girlfriend, you're so on. And I would say to Donald Trump, boyfriend, you chill. Thank you.
We've seen presidents who have embraced impersonations. We've seen Donald Trump, who has responded with fury at Alec Baldwin's treatment of him. How did you feel about that?
Listen, I understand. I was laughing. I was down on the floor laughing at some of that stuff as much as the next person was. Kate McKinnon, I was laughing. The memes, I was laughing. And I also understand that some of it's justified. I mean, I've never done that before. Some of my expressions were awkward, but there was substance to what I was saying. And I think that people understand that also. I was talking about the fact that just as New Zealand, the Prime Minister of New Zealand has said she wants New Zealand to be the best place in the world for a child to grow up, I want the United States to also be the best place in the world for every child here to grow up. So I can laugh. You know, laughter is a good thing. This is democracy. That's cool. I didn't find it was malevolent. And we all need to laugh, especially since these are such serious times. We can use a good laugh every once in a while.
2020 candidate and author of the book, The Politics of Love, Marianne Williamson. Great to have you with us. I hope you'll come back and continue to share your ideas for the country. Thank you.
Thank you for having me.
Coming up, California reeling